He's Bonkers Charley, Chapter 1. Bonkers' first impressions. First light emerged, barely animating the rooftops. Through a grey sea of clouds, painting the rooftops of Little Wobbleton with a golden glow. Charley Perkins, an early riser by nature and a night owl by choice, was already in the throes of his unique morning routine. The kitchen was a mix of clinks, clatters, spoons, and the occasional squawk of mortified protest. Today, standing amidst a scatter of mismatched socks and newspapers stacked like flimsy towers, Charley was aware of the local curiosity he inspired as he balanced a carefully curated pile of toast slices on the kettle. The humane philosophy driving this particular endeavour was simple. Why let a toaster suffer when the kettle could execute the dual purpose of boiling water and browning bread? As Charley fiddled with his dubious apparatus, a brown, feathered pigeon peered in through a half-open window, its beady eyes watching him with the sort of sullen anticipation that only pigeons could muster. He shooed it playfully with one hand, while juggling the precariously stacked toast with the other. The pigeon watched, waiting for crumbs. Companions remained unimpressed and lingered stubbornly, waiting either for crumbs or for Charley's inevitable surrender to the natural laws of gravity. Outside, the village of Little Wobbleton hummed to life. Doors creaked open, releasing mists of domestic warmth into the crisp morning air, carrying with them snippets of conversation from neighbours craning their necks to glimpse Charley's antics. Mrs. Dunstable, the town's most prolific gossip, leaned over her garden fence, the pale blue of her dressing gown fluttering in the breeze like an outraged flag. "Did you hear, Agnes?" she began, her voice a whisper but aimingly intended to reach across the entire street. "He's doing something curious with toast again." Agnes, a firm believer that Charley's every action was a puzzle to be pieced together, nodded sagely. "Genius, I tell you. And that pigeon, training it to spy, perhaps?" Charley's inventions were a staple of local lore, each more outlandish than the next, but forever delivered with an earnestness that disarmed skepticism. Inside, Charley triumphantly spread cheese across his toast, assured that today's breakfast was an improvement over yesterday's accidental porridge spill turned soup. He watched the cheese melt with satisfaction, utterly unaware of the mythos building beyond his doorsteps. To him, mornings were less about ritual and more about whim, and today felt whimsically grandiose. As he sat down to a delighted breakfast, the kettle hissed companionably, a constant companion in his misadventures. Charley laughed at a thought unspoken, sending the pigeon into an agitated flutter. Moments later, still brushing crumbs off his shirt, Charley ventured out into the cobbled street, unaware of the conspiratorial nods exchanged over garden gates. He gave a polite tip of an imaginary hat to Mrs. Dunstable, who responded with a beaming smile, whispering something audible to those with ears eager for gossip. "Morning, Charley," she chirped. "Inventing something new today?" He considered this, twirling an unruly strand of hair between his fingers. "Possibly," he replied. "I thought I might try flying a kite inside the house. For science, you know." Mrs. Dunstable nodded with an exaggerated theatricality. "Brilliant, I dare say. Scientific genius." Charley continued on his merry way, a tune dancing on his lips. Behind him, a ripple of eager chatter followed, each passerby carrying his image like a banner of improbable wisdom. In a village where intrigue was the currency of conversation, Charley was considered a vault of unintended brilliance, his abstract musings woven into the fabric of local folklore. As Charley ambled towards the green, dodging puddles and taking the longest routes through alleys strewn with memories of his childhood, he encountered Wilfred, the postman, battling his bicycle up the winding road. "Mornin', Charley," Wilfred panted, shifting his satchel from one shoulder to another. "Any new ideas today?" Charley paused, considering the question with all seriousness before shrugging amicably. "Always, Wilfred, always." Wilfred tipped his cap in respect, as if a sage truth had been imparted, and pedalled on. As the morning matured, the village hummed with effusive stories sprouting from the seeds of Charley's heedless charm, each tale a little more elaborate, a touch more venerated. By the time midday rolled around, Charley was entirely convinced he was embarking on another ordinary day in an extraordinarily ordinary life, all the while never realising that outside his bubbling kettle and errant pigeon, the world was beginning to see nothing less than a genius at play, awaiting his next whimsical miracle to unfold. As Charley turned back home for a forgotten errand, a smile played across his face, oblivious to how the simplest of actions planted roots of revolution in the fertile imaginations of Little Wobbleton's finest gossips. Chapter 2, Goat Misunderstanding. The village square of Little Wobbleton bustled with the sort of excited anticipation reserved for grand occasions like the annual vegetable fair, or the rare event of Mrs. Little White baking her famous rhubarb pie. Today, it was neither of those. The assembly was for an unveiling of sorts, a peculiar kind where nobody was quite sure what was being unveiled, least of all Charley Perkins, who ambled through the crowd with the vague sense of forgetting something crucial. His attention flickered between the faces, each one illuminated with that same peculiar expectation. The air hummed with the murmur of voices and the scent of freshly baked goods wafting from Mrs. Clutterbuck's stall. But Charley's thoughts were distracted by something else entirely. In fact, a someone else. Ambling with a carefree swagger through the crowd, a goat, speckled brown and with a jauntily crooked horn, barreled directly into Charley's daydreams. It bleated with a voice that implied deep and unending dissatisfaction, its eyes meeting Charley's with a knowing look. He blinked, trying to ascertain whether he too had become victim to the collective daydream that seemed to have gripped Little Wobbleton. "Now, where on earth did you spring from?" Charley questioned aloud, as if addressing a conspiratorial friend rather than livestock. The goat, apparently unfazed by the commotion it caused, tossed its head, nudging Charley in a manner that seemed both accusatory and affectionate. Around them, a mild panic erupted as Mrs. Dunstable shrieked about remembering to bar the pasture gate, while the children giggled and pointed, undoubtedly savouring every snippet of pandemonium. Somehow finding himself with one hand clutching the goat's collar, Charley turned, detecting a babble of voices raised in confusion, a flock of villagers worrying over who should have been accountable for tethering animals prior to such an event. Inadvertently, it appeared Charley had assumed the role of the goat's unlikely guardian. It was the kind of mix-up that seemed to find him. His thoughts diverted when a distant call rang out. "Where's the mayor?" lost somewhere amidst the fabric and fervour of gathering curiosity. Mayor Tibbles had apparently used the confusion as an opportunity for a disappearing act of Houdini proportions. Rumour had it he dashed for shelter at the sight of an especially enthusiastic gathering near the cake stand. Or possibly it was the sight of Mrs. Little White running towards him with a trowel. Either seemed plausible. The goat pulled insistently, leading Charley like some peculiar Pied Piper toward a rough band of onlookers, all eyes now glued to them, as if this moment ordained significance. Fascination was a word too mild for it. This was befuddlement mixed with sheer delight. Wilfred the postman, a man both robust and perpetually cheerful, squeezed through the dewy-eyed crowd, a crisp envelope dangling just out of his grubby fingers. "Charley," he cheerily bellowed above the throng, stumbling closer. "I've got something for you. Must be important if they tracked it straight to the square." Charley barely had time to stammer something along the lines of, "I didn't know goats warranted postage," before Wilfred was at his side, threading the letter into his free hand. The goat, now placated by Charley's ongoing attention, ceased its struggle momentarily, choosing instead to nuzzle contentedly against his hip. The ease felt almost prophetic, as though acknowledging Charley as a harbinger of odd but ultimately safe tidings. Around him, strangers and long-time residents began vocalising the conjecture that followed Charley's habitual presence wherever he went. A few sharp-eyed newspaper correspondents had caught wind of the excitement, their notepads enduring a scraping frenzy as pens danced over paper, capturing whatever nonsensical truth the villagers might offer. And just like that, As if perpetuating itself through sheer absurdity, Charley unwittingly found himself thrust once more into the creation of a local legend. How the tale of an ordinary man and an unruly goat burgeoned into a story of phantasmal proportions in the space of hours was anybody's speculation. The mayor's whereabouts remained elusive, a mystery eagerly scribbled by waiting journalists, who shorthanded scant justice to little Wobbleton's nuances. The goat, meanwhile, seemed settled in its choice of companion, oblivious to the yarn unwinding around its impromptu shepherd. Through it all, Charley stood amid whispers and gasps, muddled by the weight of accidental celebrity thrust upon him like an ill-fitting hat. It tickled with foreignness, an unexpected draught blowing through the attic of his consciousness. He glanced around, the smile on his lips as dazed and unknowing as the eyes cast upon him, meeting every questioning glance with a bemused sort of innocence. Only later, while standing in his own garden, swathed in the dwindling golden light, did he recall the mayor, or rather the stout figure who had emerged from the overgrown patch behind Fiddler's Green, somewhat sheepish if not resigned, face puffed from precarious prunes and covered in a generous amount of flour that had startled a pigeon or two. Little Wobbleton might still be buzzing with the day's ineffable commotion, but Charley, stewing in bewilderment and a quiet joy that often underlined his days, carried on blissfully unaware of the chronicles that spun around him. Chronicles sure to propel him into dawns unknown. Beneath the starlit village skies, Charley allowed himself a brief ponder of goats, lost mayors, and townsfolk whose imaginations remained ever keener than any fathomable truth he knew. Perhaps it was simply that the world, in all its constancy and irregularities, quite loved a touch of bonkers every now and then.